Okay, here we go. I'm at a stage now in my career where you get what you get. Hey friends, it's your good friend Tim Campbell Smith, and today we're talking about changing careers and that process, and some tips and some suggestions. Changing careers at any age sucks. It is hard work. Hard emotionally, mentally, socially, and doing so in your 30s, like me, is not easy. Figuring out your career at all is not going to be easy for anyone of any age. So, having been through this process multiple times and done so to varying degrees of success, we're going to go over different strategies, tips, and tricks to figuring out careers and career possibilities in your life. Before we go too far, make sure you like and subscribe to continue on with the journey, keep chatting about careers, photography, mental health, and whatever else. Okay, so first, for those of you who are thinking about changing careers, how do you know when it's the right time to change careers? Here's what happened for me. How did I know it was the right time or that I needed to change my career? So I knew that I was unhappy. The question then became, okay, in what area of my life am I unhappy? So there's different dimensions of wellness and, humanity. And that you can look at those dimensions and go like, for example, am I unhappy with my finance? Am I unhappy with my spirituality or what's going on spiritually? Am I unhappy with my vocation? For me, I knew I'd been unhappy for a while with my and in my career space because I noticed that when my imagination wandered, it was always about work. So, and I kind of tend to believe that if your imagination wanders from one place, it's not happy there and it's curious about something else. So, I was curious about other careers and other professions. So, that was my first clue. Second, I noticed that some work was, especially teaching, because I've been a digital marketing consultant and a social media manager within my business that I ran, but I was also a teacher in higher education, teaching at the college and university level. I noticed some work, especially the teaching work, was making me unhappy, bitter, jaded, angry, even just thinking about it. So that's how I knew, okay, it was towards my career that we needed a shift and a change. The other thing is I could no longer see myself doing it for a long period of time. And I definitely felt in my gut like the end was coming near. So I started then, my brain immediately went to, okay, if I don't do this, then what could I do? And I want to say this, asking yourself like, what do I want to do for a career? What do I want to do for a job is nonsense. That is a bananas, bogus, nonsense question, but I fell for it. So I started off by thinking just about jobs, in terms of jobs, and this did come in handy later. So I was looking at everything from like business analyst, nurse, social worker, photographer, business consultant, working in human resources, looked at a bunch of different jobs. That wasn't really helping because I was torn and all over the place. And so that's what, let's talk about why asking, what do you want to do? What do you want to be is a really bogus question. What you want to do and what you want to be will change over time. I also think what you may want to do may not exist or may not be, you might not know it exists. When I was in high school, for example, digital marketing wasn't a thing yet. I mean, social media had just come on the scene, and all of this makes me sound old. I'm only 32 at the time of recording. But what I wanted to do didn't even exist, and I didn't know that it even interested me. In high school, I hated business. I hated my business class, and I hated my business teacher. And now look, like my consulting practice is thriving. Also, though, people change careers, and my therapist really brought this to my attention to never view careers as this or that, like, and looking at it as something you're going to do for 40 years and then retire and then die from. Like, people change careers, especially millennials. We suspect Gen Z will follow the same pattern. People change careers. So it's not, what do I want to do? What do I want to be? It's a better question might be, what's my next step? What's the next thing that could bring me joy? And what could bring me joy after that? So I learned to stop seeing careers as like this or that. Either way, though, I still had to figure out what the next step was. So before getting into the career stuff, I then went to do personality testing. I wanted to get to know myself first. And for anybody who's exploring careers, I think this is a brilliant step that everyone should do. Figure out who you are at your core. So I did Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, True Colors, Lumina, strength finders, to figure out like who am I at my core, what brings me joy, what does my purpose look like, that kind of thing. And then I went to career aptitude testing. Career aptitude testing was cool because it did rule out a lot. It's where I learned like, oh, I shouldn't be working in business or HR. But career aptitude testing brought me a new problem. I got an almost perfect and even split on every single career aptitude test I did, where the tests either said I should go into a caring profession or a creative profession. And then I wondered, why not both? But more on that later. So for creative professions, it was recommending like I should go into painting, into photography. And for caring professions, it was recommending like social worker and psychologist. So eventually that stopped being helpful because it was almost every single time a perfect even split. So then I started to combine like personal and career exploration and, talk to a career coach, talk to a life coach, talk to my partner, and I got some cool questions that I got to answer. So like my husband had a really interesting question where he said, what bothers you about your current career, about being a consultant, being a teacher? What bothers you about it? And then what of those things that bothers you is going to be in those other careers, in social work or in photography? Because at this point, I had narrowed it down to kind of photography or social work. So I thought that was a cool question. What bothers you about your current profession or your current life, and how will it show up in other places? Then I was also asked, like, what do you want to talk about? What do you want to spend your days talking about? What do you want to spend your days doing? What do you want your life to look like? Which I thought were great questions. How often do you want to work with people, and how often do you want to work with things? I thought that was a really cool question. But again, I was still flip-flopping between the two. And let me say this, a theme throughout this process is how painful this process was for me. So then I went to informational interviews. Now, I'll have a whole other video on that. I hope I remember, I'll link it somewhere. But informational interviews are where you go and interview someone in a career you're thinking about, just to really get to know like the career and the possibilities. So I did that with social workers and I did it with photographers. Really got a sense of what to honestly and accurately expect. It was way better than a Google search. Ultimately, photography won out. When it came down to choosing photography or social work, I had to consider elements from every dimension, from finance, like paying for schooling, and then, how much money can I make out of school? Photography has a higher, ceiling and a higher potential, but also a lower bottom, right? It could be harder to make money right away. Whereas social work, great bottom, when you get out of school, you can make a pretty great salary right away, but also a way lower glass ceiling, which I didn't like. And then, what opportunities could the schools afford me, and what would come with it, and just a lot of other things. And ultimately, photography at Mohawk College won out. Now, I say that now while recording, but I also am working on staying open-minded that may change. So a joke I kind of make with my family and friends when they say like, have you thought about a school? Have you thought about like what you are going to study? And I say the best way to know what I end up doing is just find out who got my money in September. So that may change, and that's okay in life too, and I'm learning to live with that. But for now, I'm happy with the choice of photography. It leans into my creative side. I'm also viewing like next steps, so it'd be really easy to go from a college diploma, finish and get a university degree, maybe go into art therapy. I don't know. I'm trying to keep an open mind on it. I also liked photography because it's using a lot of skills that I already have and that I'm familiar with. So I know how to run a business. I know how to work creatively and what to expect when you work in a creative industry. I like the flexibility and the money potentials. So here we are. If you have any school or career tips, let me know. Otherwise, let me know, what has your career exploration journey been like? Or what's going through your mind as you explore careers? I guess the biggest thing that's really jumped out to me, and I want to, drive home for you, whoever's watching this, is things may change. And it's not definitive. It's not like your next step is your last step. It's a step on a journey. The biggest thing I've learned from this is that whatever I do next is not the end-all be-all, and that there will be other things. And I'm kind of excited about that possibility too. Comment and let me know your experience with your career journey. And otherwise, I will see you in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.